What's up, fellow supporter pack enthusiasts? Today we're going to go over the available microtransactions and their prices, niche tabs and their specific uses, and then we'll organize all of that into a nice, neat little tier list. At first, I wasn't going to do a tier list, but honestly, it's a decent format that makes things really easy to structure, compare, and revisit, especially for a newer player with no idea what they're looking at. One thing I should mention before we start is that Triple G typically has a stash tab sale once every few weeks, and there's actually a tool we can use to check when the predicted next stash tab sale is. You can hop over to poedb.tw/US, and at the top here you can see there's a convenient countdown to the next stash tab sale. I'll put a link to that in the description so you can check that out whenever you'd like. Now that we know when to buy tabs, let's go over the tabs themselves so you know exactly what to buy. And keep in mind, for this we'll be using a US dollar pricing, and the basic pricing structure is $1 US per 10 points. The first tab we're going to touch on is the basic stash tab. This one comes in at 30 points or $3 US. These are the standard run-of-the-mill stash tabs that have a pre-assigned name and are just like the free ones you get with the base game. We're going to give this one a B for basic. It's nothing special, but it's extra space, and extra space is always going to be useful in a loot-based ARPG. These tabs can be upgraded to premium tabs by purchasing the upgrade for 15 points from the shop. Keep in mind the price for a premium stash tab is 40 points, so you're losing out on 5 points if you buy one of these and upgrade it later. You can, however, upgrade one of your free stash tabs to a premium tab, which is a great idea if you have a limited budget or a bit of leftover points after buying other things. All of the stash tabs aside from the basic tab allows you to change the name and the color. They also allow you to set an affinity on the tab, which means anything related to that affinity that you try to stuff into other tabs while you hold the control key will automatically move to that tab unless you're also holding the shift key. Lastly, each of these tabs will have the option of setting the tab to public, which means that you can price the items and list them on the Path of Exile trade website. Without this ability, you'd have to use the forums, and I can tell you right now, forums are a giant headache to both list stuff in and to browse. So I'll show you the affinity feature here. So we'll grab some divine orbs, and let's say we're in a tab that doesn't have divine orbs in it or isn't associated with divine orbs. If we hold control and left click, that will automatically go into the tab with the affinity. And as far as the public stuff goes, we can switch this to public, and we can set either a price on each item, a negotiable price on all items, or an exact price on all items. So if we have each item individually priced, then we'd go and right click on an item, and we can set a note, we can set a negotiable price, an exact price, or we can choose to just not index the item at all. So that is the function of all of the rest of the stash tabs aside from the basic one, and we'll go over all those tabs now. The next set of tabs on the list are the premium and quad stash tabs. The quad comes in at 150 points, and premiums will run you 40 per tab. The main difference between the quad and the normal premium is that the quad is 4 premium tabs in one. You also save 10 points compared to buying 4 premium tabs, so there's some extra value in buying a quad over premiums. Having at least one of either of these tabs is highly recommended for trade leagues. As I mentioned before, you can set the affinity, make sure that it's public, you can list items inside the tab, and you can change the title. We're going to put these tabs in the S tier as they're basically essential for trade leagues. For solo self-found, the value of premium tab is going to decrease a bit because there's nowhere for you to list your items. But if you're ever planning on playing trade, these are definitely 2 of the best purchases you could possibly make. Next up, for 75 points, is the currency stash tab. Path of Exile is a game that revolves around a ton of different currencies that can manipulate items and maps in different ways, which means in terms of space saving, a currency tab is probably one of the biggest space savers you can possibly have. The stack sizes of currencies are generally pretty small, so the fact that some of these slots can go up to 5,000 items or more can really add up. To put that into perspective, Chaos stacks to 20, and the currency tab allows 5,000 Chaos in the Chaos slot, as you can see here, so that one slot is going to save us equivalent to 250 slots in a normal stash tab. This is one of the most important tabs you can buy, and I highly recommend getting one as it'll save an insane amount of space. As you probably expected, this one's going straight into the S tier. If you already own at least one premium or quad tab, I'd put this at the very, very top. But if you don't own any tabs at all, I would definitely prioritize getting at least one quad or one premium tab over the currency tab to start off with. Now we're moving on to a bit more specific tabs. The next tab we'll be looking at is the map tab. For 150 points, this tab gives us 72 slots for every map, and another 72 slots for that map if the map can show up in a different tier. It also gives us a really quick glance at what maps we haven't completed, so for early league this can be huge quality of life. In my opinion, the map tab is another essential tab, but it's not something that you can't live without. For that reason, we're going to throw the map tab into the A tier. It's not quite on par with the other three in S tier, but it's definitely a very, very valuable tab. The only reason this isn't an S tier is because of the extremely high price compared to the sheer value you get from, say, 75 points from a currency tab. But it is, however, a very, very good tab, and I can't stress enough how valuable this tab is in the endgame. Next up, we have the divination tab for 50 points or $5. This tab will allow you to stack up all your divination cards in one place and easily toggle between showing cards you have full stacks for, showing cards you own, or showing cards you don't own, as well as showing them all at a glance. This tab can also hold more cards than what the maximum stack size is, so you see here's the max stack size is 3 and we have 4 Sea of Blue cards in here. So if you're accumulating a lot of cards, the space this can save will definitely add up. While this tab can save you a lot of space, it's not as valuable as everything else we've looked at so far, so for this one I'm going to throw it into a low A. I still think it's a really good tab to have, but compared to the rest of what we've looked at, it's definitely not as strong as some of the other options. The main saving grace for this tab is it's only 50 points, so the value you can potentially get compared to the price you pay is actually really high. The next tab on the list, we have the fragment tab, which will run you 75 points. This tab is a little bit more of an endgame oriented tab, and it allows us to stack up our fragments that we get beyond their stack limit and sort it into nice little sections, giving us a really quick glance at what we're missing for sets. It can store all endgame fragment sets, including Maven, Lab Trials, Elder, Shaper, Breach Lords, Timeless Emblems, Scarabs, and it can also store endgame invitations. Most of the time I spend playing Pose in the endgame, so my opinion will slightly lean towards in favor of this tab, but if you're a more casual player or you're not spending a lot of time farming high tier maps, you'll definitely get less mileage out of this tab than somebody who is. For me, we're going to slide this right in between the map and divination tabs. This one's a strong A, and there's definitely an argument for it being even above the map tab, just strictly based on the price difference. Next up is another tab that's going to be a lot more useful for someone farming more endgame oriented stuff, but can be useful in the early game as well. This one is the Essence tab. This tab comes in at $4 or 40 points. It allows you to store essences above their stack limit, which is 9, and it will also provide a slot for crafting items. The other function of this tab that differs from some of the other tabs is it allows you to upgrade your essences without having to visit a vendor. So you would just hit the upgrade button, we would click on the slot that we want to upgrade, and there it would upgrade all of the essences in that slot. As far as this tab goes, its value increases and decreases depending on what strategies you're using for endgame. And if you're farming essences specifically, this tab can save you a ton of space and allow you to list your essences straight from this tab without having to move it over to another tab with a stack limit of 9. So for this reason, I'm going to put this tab in a strong B position. If you're using this tab a lot and you're farming essences, this tab is definitely a strong A, but in terms of overall value for all types of players, this one is definitely a B. And the next one on the list, we have the Gem tab. The Gem tab can definitely be useful, but I think it's more of a luxury than a necessity. The main saving grace is that this one is 40 points, so it's relatively cheap. It can save you a decent amount of space, and it lets you sort between gems with XP, gems with quality, and filter by gem color to make finding your gems pretty easily. So we have our base level, we have our gem level, we have our quality, and then we have our different color gems that we can filter out here. Honestly, a lot of the gems you'll find will either go into a sell tab, will be vendored with other gems for the gem cutter's prism recipe, or just be discarded, so we're going to dock some value for that reason. I'm going to throw this one in the B bracket behind the basic tab. It's nice for the space, but as I mentioned, it's more of a luxury than a necessity. Next on the list, we have the Flask tab. This is another $4 tab, and it's one of the more recent tabs alongside the Gem tab. It can definitely be somewhat valuable, especially for a new player, However, there isn't a ton of reasons to hold on to a lot of excessive flasks, and the mod pool for flasks is relatively low, so rolling your flask is pretty easy. Also, these days, baubles are pretty easy to come by, so this tab loses quite a bit of value compared to every other tab. For those reasons, we're going to throw the flask tab at the very back of the D tier. And this tab, like the gem tab, will allow you to sort by item level, base type, and quality, which is a little bit of a saving grace, but again, it's not that valuable of a tab, to be honest. Up next, we have the unique tab at a whopping 140 points. The unique tab can definitely be valuable if you're trying to collect uniques, especially in Standard League, as some of the pieces can take up quite a bit of space, and this sorts it neatly. This will allow you to store one copy of each unique in the tab itself, but honestly, this is more of a collector's thing and not very useful for the average player. You're likely going to end up selling high-value uniques you get and not even bother picking up the majority of the other uniques. So this tab basically ends up like a graveyard for things that you forget about a few hours after you loot it. It may be a little controversial to some players, but I'm going to put the unique tab at the very bottom in its own row. I just can't justify the price, and unless you're only playing Standard, I would honestly hard pass on this tab for the amount of money that you're spending. Now we're getting into the super niche stuff. All these tabs will run you 40 points or $4. I'm going to put all these tabs into their own section, but something to consider with these tabs is that the more you plan to interact with their specific mechanics, the more valuable they will be within a league. All of these tabs definitely have some usefulness, so I'll order them by how much I value them within the niche column itself. Now, the first tab we'll look at is the Delve tab. Yours may look a little bit different because this is the legacy one, which holds some of the stuff that doesn't exist in the game anymore. But generally, it'll look pretty similar to this, and maybe I can find another one. Where do we have another Delve tab? Here's a Delve tab. This is what the updated tab will look like. So this tab, if you're the type of person that needs to do a lot of fossil crafting or just enjoys farming Delve, the value of this tab is definitely going to skyrocket compared to someone that doesn't interact with it a whole lot. The resonator slots will allow you to save a ton of space. As you can see, these resonators do take up quite a bit of room here. And they only stack to 10. So this tab also will give you 2 slots for crafting. You can put like a full resonator in there, or you can put an item in there, and then you can do some crafting on that item. So we'll throw this on that. So you can craft right in this slot, but honestly, that's just kind of more of a luxury. My time spent in Delve varies from league to league, and I usually do a ton of fossil crafting each league. So I've seen a lot of value from the Delve tab. So we're going to put this one at the front of the niche row. The value of this tab, like I said before, increases exponentially if you delve a lot, and will decrease if you don't delve a whole lot. For the next tab on the list, we have the Metamorph tab. Metamorph is a really niche league itself, and honestly, this tab really doesn't offer a ton of value, but it does, however, let us stack our catalysts to be a lot above their stack limit, and it sorts our Metamorph parts into their own little tabs, so you can get a quick look at what you are missing in terms of filling out full sets. So it does offer some limited usefulness. However, we're going to put this pretty weak in the order because your average player that just interacts with whatever league mechanic it doesn't specifically go after Metamorph won't really see a whole lot of use out of this tab. Moving on to the next one, let's take a look at the Blight tab. The Blight tab functions similar to the Essence tab in that it'll allow us to upgrade our oils without having to vendor them. It also allows us to anoint an item without having to go over to Cassia. So here we can click on upgrade and then upgrade our oils nice and easily. And then as far as anointing items, we just drag our item into the slot, and then we throw our oils, whichever combination it may be, and click the anoint button, and it's done. If you're farming a lot of oils, especially in early league scenarios, the tab can have a pretty big impact on your storage space, but for the average player, you're not going to see a whole lot of use from this tab. Pair that with the fact that you only have room for 60 maps, and the value of this tab drops substantially compared to the rest. For this list, we're going to throw Blight behind the Delve tab, so it does maintain a pretty strong showing in this list. And with a Blight-focused strategy, this could definitely be a pretty high-value tab. But again, for general play, I don't see a whole ton of value. However, the fact that it is only 40 points is a saving grace, and it will definitely provide decent value for those 40 points. Alright, and our last entry into the $4 bin is the Delirium tab. Delirium's another tab that has pretty limited usefulness outside of specifically farming for that stuff, But if you're running some strats revolving delirium or farming delirium orbs, it can be pretty alright, I guess. This tab includes 60 slots for delirious maps, just like the blight tab. It also allows you to stack delirium orbs and simulacrums higher than their stack limit. Sort of like here, normally a simulacrum wouldn't stack at all, but in this tab we can stack it up to, I honestly have no idea. I've never hit the cap, so if you find out what the cap is, please do tell me. Honestly, this one is one that I never really find a whole lot of use for. Even when I'm farming strategies with high delirium orb incomes, I'm either selling them in bulk or using them anyway. So the saving grace for this tab is it's only 40 points, which is pretty reasonable. It's the same price as a premium tab, so I mean, if you're buying tabs for everything anyway, you might as well grab this one. It's okay. And for those reasons, I'm going to throw this one towards the end of the tier. It just doesn't have as much usefulness as the Delve tab, and it likely won't save you as much space as the Delve tab. And same with the Blight tab, it probably won't save you as much space as that either. There you have it. Some may not agree with my placement on a few of these, but I tried to be as unbiased as I possibly could and look at the value like a new player using these tabs for the first time would value them. I hope this video helps solve some of your internal struggles on where to spend your hard-earned money. And as always, I appreciate you all. Thanks a lot for sticking around to the end. Links to the poedb website so you can check the sale times and my Discord will both be in the description. If you want to come by and talk about builds or endgame strategies or anything like that, feel free to stop by and give me a shout. Thanks a lot. See you guys later.